South Korean President Yoon vowed to expand military information sharing with NATO amid tensions on the peninsula when speaking at the NATO summit in Lithuania. The group reiterates the need for the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea in a communique. While NATO members are meeting on the other side of the world, here on the peninsula, North Korea test-fired an apparent intercontinental ballistic missile this morning on the heels of its recent warnings over U.S. spy aircraft operations. Meanwhile, some 330,000 more jobs were added in South Korea last month, though the pace of increase was slower due to weaker performances in the construction and manufacturing sectors. It's July 12, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon. We begin in the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius, where South Korean President Yoon is attending the main events for invited partner nations to NATO on the second day of the summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. All this happens amid North Korea's fresh round of missile launch earlier in the day and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young is in Vilnius to fill us in. Soo-young, let's start with President Yoon's remarks at the NATO summit session with partner countries, where he spoke about deterring North Korea's provocations.
Hi, Tongmin. Yes, President Yoon has called for stronger global condemnation and responses to North Korea's nuclear missile provocations as he addressed leaders at a meeting of 31 NATO countries extended to invited nations on Wednesday. Saying that North Korea's missiles could reach not only its neighboring countries, but also cities like London, Paris, Berlin, even Vilnius, he emphasized that the regime's provocations are a threat to global peace and security. Yoon voiced this appreciation for the alliance's condemnation of the regime through a joint communique released the previous day, where the member nations also called for North Korea's complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. NATO's statement in 2022 on that note did not include North Korea, and the alliance has not issued a joint condemnation of the regime's nuclear missile program since 2018, so that would be 5 years.
North Korea's nuclear threat also featured heavily in Mr. Yoon's talks with leaders of the Asia-Pacific 4 nations held prior to the NATO summit session.
That's right. As you said, early Wednesday morning, President Yoon met with the leaders of Japan and Australia, who strongly criticized North Korea's missile launch, they met with the leader of New Zealand as well. And they all, of course, stepped into their multilateral dialogue of the so-called AP4 nations. And the session was moderated by Mr. Yoon. The leaders noted how the North Korean provocations and the ongoing war in Ukraine show the increasing need for collaboration between Indo-Pacific countries, as well as with those of the Atlantic, as their security challenges are not just confined to one bloc. Wednesday marked the second time that they had gathered for AP4 talks after the countries first attended the annual security summit as observer nations last year, and comes amid efforts to increase collaboration between countries with shared universal values. According to Yoon's office, the AP4 leaders agreed to close NATO and Indo-Pacific cooperation, the strengthening of cooperation with Pacific Island states as well. They also agreed to build resilient and diversified supply chains, as well as ramp up cybersecurity cooperation.
And on increasing value-based collaboration and global solidarity, let's go back to the president's NATO summit speech, as he also highlighted the ongoing war in Ukraine and Seoul's future cooperation with NATO.
Right, so the president rather emphatically promised that he and South Koreans will stand with Ukraine until the day when the freedom of Ukrainians is fully restored. He also pledged to contribute to the NATO Ukraine Trust Fund to build up Kyiv's resilience in that regard. And furthermore, reflecting on Korea's new bilateral partnership program with NATO, which was adopted on Tuesday, covering 11 areas of cooperation, the South Korean leader highlighted cyber cooperation and expanding military intel sharing as particularly important areas going forward, with Seoul leading Indo-Pacific efforts in cybersecurity by establishing an international cyber training center. Now, South Korea became the first Asian country to join NATO's Center for Cyber Defense last year, and it's been participating in NATO's annual large-scale cyber exercise called Locked Shields. Yoon said that the growing use of digital media and cyberspace are becoming tools for distributing fake news and propaganda by authoritarian and totalitarian forces, who he said use unhesitant use of war, violence, and manipulation of public opinion, which challenge international norms. So, in this regard, Mr. Yoon said that nations that share common universal values must cooperate more firmly in solidarity in this very hyper-connected world where Asian and European security issues now cannot be separated. That's all from me for now. Back to you, Tom.
Right, thank you for keeping us updated, Soo-young. In the coming hours, President Yoon will sit down with his Japanese counterpart, Fumio Kishida, on the sidelines of the NATO summit. Japan's plan to release Fukushima nuclear wastewater into the Pacific Ocean is expected to top the two's discussion, as this meeting comes after an IAEA report that says the plant meets international standards. Mr. Kishida will likely make efforts to gain Seoul's support. Also, the meeting comes after Tokyo relisted Seoul on its trade whitelist, and the senior presidential secretary for economic affairs says the two will assess the decision and discuss ways to expand cross-investment to build a stable supply chain. In addition, he hinted that an announcement will soon be made on Japanese semiconductor-related companies investing in South Korea, which he says is the result of the resuming of so-called shuttle diplomacy between the two. In related news, NATO leaders in Lithuania have been discussing an array of issues, ranging from North Korea's hostile weapons ambitions to the issues surrounding China, as well as the expansion of its membership to more countries like Ukraine and Sweden. Our Kim Mo-gyun has the wrap-up of this year's meeting.
In an official joint communique submitted on Tuesday local time, leaders of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization once again condemned North Korea's hostile weapons in the strongest terms. The 31-member alliance called for the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the regime, pointing at its mass destruction and ballistic missile programs. It also urged Pyongyang to return to international agreements on nuclear non-proliferation, as well as dialogue proposed by Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington. The member states stressed that peace on the Korean peninsula is crucial for NATO, as it could directly influence security in the Euro-Atlantic region, adding that they will further cooperate to combat security challenges in the area. With the rare participation of representatives from 4 non-member states from the Asia-Pacific region this year, another major topic discussed at the NATO meeting was issues surrounding China. Of some 90 joint statements issued on the first summit day, 6 were related to China. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg says China's government policies challenge NATO's security, values, and interests, claiming that the country is weighing the costs and benefits of offensive action, just like Russia. Though the U.S.-led alliance says it's open to constructive engagement with China, it singled out what it called Beijing's deepening strategic partnership with Moscow. Member states also discussed issuing membership status to Ukraine and Sweden. It seems likely that Sweden will become the 32nd NATO member as Turkey and Hungary drop their opposition. U.S. President Joe Biden also welcomed the news, as if Swedish accession gets ratified, the expanded membership alliance is expected to cement a major shift in European security. Meanwhile, regarding Ukraine, member states said they would invite Kyiv to join the alliance under certain conditions, but did not mention a specified timeline. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Here on the peninsula, North Korea fired an apparent ICBM into the East Sea this morning, following its recent warnings against the U.S. for its spy plane allegedly intruding on its exclusive economic zone. This has prompted a National Security Council meeting led by President Yoon, who is currently meeting NATO members in Lithuania. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
A fresh display of defiance by North Korea. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff on Wednesday morning spotted that North Korea fired what is presumed to be an intercontinental ballistic missile at around 10 a.m. toward the East Sea. The missile was reportedly launched from the Pyongyang area. The JCS said it was fired at a high angle and flew about 1,000 kilometers before landing in the East Sea. It was the North's first ballistic missile launch in 27 days. Following the launch, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, who's in Lithuania to attend the NATO summit, called an emergency meeting of the National Security Council via video call. Yoon made clear that North Korea's illegal activities come at a price and called for stronger extended deterrence capabilities through the nuclear consultative group between Seoul and Washington. The president also stressed that necessary military and diplomatic measures need to be taken. South Korea's military said it is maintaining a full defense posture in close cooperation with the U.S. as well. It also strongly condemned the North's provocation, saying that it harms peace and stability on the Korean peninsula as well as internationally, and is in clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. The launch came a day after North Korea threatened to take military action after the regime accused the U.S. of, quote, illegally intruding into the sky above its economic exclusive zone with a spy plane. Both Seoul and Washington, however, have denied the accusation. The president of the University of North Korean Studies in Seoul, Yang Mu-jin, said the launch can be seen as the North's way of implying that shooting down a U.S. reconnaissance aircraft could become a reality. Military expert Yang Uk says that Pyongyang fired the missile to gain the upper hand following its failed attempt to launch its first spy satellite in May. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korean Foreign Minister Park Jin is set to take part in ASEAN-related ministerial meetings starting Thursday in Indonesia. Eyes are on a meeting with his Japanese counterpart there as Tokyo's release of Fukushima wastewater is coming up. He may also sit down with a high-profile official from China. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has more on what to expect from these events.
South Korean Foreign Minister Park Jin headed to Indonesia's capital city of Jakarta on Wednesday afternoon to take part in ASEAN-related ministerial meetings. He is scheduled to join the South Korea-ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting and the ASEAN Plus 3 on Thursday, and will take part in the East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Regional Forum on Friday. Park will be joined by officials from more than 20 countries, including the U.S., China, Japan, Russia, as well as ASEAN nations. On the sidelines, Park will hold a separate bilateral meeting with his Japanese counterpart, Yoshimasa Hayashi. As anger and fear grow over Japan's plan to release wastewater from its Fukushima nuclear power plant, Japan's NHK News reported Wednesday that Hayashi will likely explain to Park the findings of the IAEA's recent report and ask for his understanding and support. And officials are also currently working to schedule a trilateral meeting between the foreign ministers of South Korea, Japan, and the United States. Also, Park could possibly meet China's top diplomat, Wang Yi, a former foreign minister and current head of the ruling Communist Party's Central Commission for Foreign Affairs, to discuss ways to improve relations. Wang will represent China on behalf of the country's foreign minister, Qin Gang, who is not able to attend. In rare admission, China's foreign ministry on Tuesday said that its minister, who was last seen in public on June 25th, is unwell.
State Councilor and Foreign Minister Qin Gang cannot attend this ASEAN ministerial meeting because of health reasons.
Amid worsening bilateral ties with China, all eyes are now on whether the high-level talks will take place this week, and if this could act as an opportunity to develop relations between Seoul and Beijing. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Amid the public anxiety over Fukushima water release, South Korea's ruling People Power Party holds a task force for measures to help safeguard the nation's fishery and food service industries. They ensure that the fishery products in Korea are safe. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
Saving our seas. And at the same time, saving the nation's fishing and food service industries is what the ruling People Power Party's special task force, led by lawmaker Jeong-hyoun, is aiming to do. On Wednesday afternoon, the Saving Our Seas task force sat down with industry leaders to hear what they had to say at a time of public anxiety over Fukushima wastewater. After the closed meeting, lawmaker Jeong shared that the industry leaders are asking the government to carry out promotions based on science to debunk the myths about wastewater. Reassuring that the level of radioactive materials in the treated wastewater is far below the safety standards, Jeong suggested a way to lessen public anxiety.
It would help to strengthen the system to ensure safety at fish markets or other trade locations for these seafood products. That's what the fishermen and everyone else here are saying in agreement.
There may be support from the Oceans and Agriculture ministries. The party also asked the Finance Ministry to review its suggestions for mutual growth between the industries and the administration rather than providing one-way support. There may be lowered interest rates on loans and government product reserves, but giving away cash is not being considered. Those representing the industry shared some of the difficulties.
A study of 260 seafood restaurants around the country shows that after the spread of myth in June, the sales of regular Korean seafood restaurants dropped by more than 15.9%, and this is only getting worse in July.
He further asked the nation's political circles to stop driving the drop in seafood consumption. Now this comes at a time of continued denouncing by the main opposition Democratic Party of the recent IAEA report giving the green light for Japan's plan to release the wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. A number of DP lawmakers as of Wednesday are on a visit to Japan to protest the plan. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
More than 300,000 new jobs were added in June here in South Korea, though the pace of increase was slower due to weaker performances in the construction and manufacturing sectors. The country's finance minister vows to increase the number of foreign workers to resolve so-called job mismatch. Our economic correspondent Lee Dae-hyun has more.
More than 28.8 million people were in jobs last month, up 333,000 from the same period last year. According to Statistics Korea, June marked the third consecutive month for on-year increases above 300,000. However, the latest figure was down slightly from May, some 351,000 more jobs compared to the same month the year before. The employment rate of people over 15 was at 63.5% last month, an all-time high for any month of June. The unemployment rate, too, recorded an all-time low for any June since 1996, standing at 2.7%.
With increasing demand for daycare services and more outdoor activities resuming, a rise in the number of people in employment continues. But due to the sluggish construction market, the on-year increase dropped compared to May.
By age, the number of people over 60 in jobs is continuing to grow, with 343,000 more people in that age group employed. However, the figure for those aged 15 to 29 dropped by 117,000, decreasing for 8th month in a row. One official from Statistics Korea says the continuous drop in employment figures for younger people is due to the overall population drop. It also said fewer jobs in the manufacturing sector and wholesale and retail businesses have also caused a decline in youth employment. In fact, the manufacturing sector continued with a 6th month of consecutive jobs decline, with 10,000 fewer jobs on year recorded last month. The number of people employed in the construction sector dropped 62,000, the biggest drop among all sectors. The medical and social welfare service sector rose 126,000. Meanwhile, earlier on Wednesday, Finance Minister Jeong-hyoun said in an emergency economic meeting that the government will focus on resolving job mismatch issues by improving the working environment and utilizing foreign workers in Korea.
Following the measures to resolve labor shortage issues in 6 sectors, including manufacturing and logistics in March, the government will roll out the same measures in 4 sectors, such as shipping and construction.
He also said government support for small-sized companies with policies that support working parents will be expanded, while the visa quota for skilled foreign workers will be increased. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Seoul metropolitan government announced today that local bus fares will rise by 300 Korean won next month and subway fares by 150 won from October. The new basic fare for local buses will be 1,500 won, which is roughly $1.2 from next month. Meanwhile, that for subways will be 1,400 won, or about $1.1. Seoul City originally planned to raise both public transportation services fares by the same amount, but decided to wait until next year for the subway, considering the state of the economy and recent price hikes. Expectations are high for Korean classical musicians on the global stage following tenor Kim Tae-han winning the Queen Elizabeth competition. And there is another artist who has made a significant impact. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin had the opportunity to speak with cellist Jeong-hyoun.
She's the first female Asian cellist to join the Boston Symphony Orchestra, one of the best orchestras in the United States. Jeong-hyoun has etched her name in the orchestra's more than 140-year history. Her musical journey began at the age of 7 when her music teacher encouraged her to switch from piano to cello.
I think there's an inner instrument for everyone, and I think cello was my right fit. And I switched, and
when she was 10, Lee moved to the U.S. to study at the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, where she got her bachelor's degree and then went to Europe. It was when she was part of a string quartet in Paris that she found out Boston Symphony was looking for a cellist.
But I felt slightly stuck, and I was looking for a way to still grow, continue growing as a musician, and create a thriving environment for myself.
After 4 auditions, Lee got the job. She now seeks to challenge stereotypes and raise awareness about Asian musicians like herself.
There are some, so-called music lovers who might say that Asian musicians are very talented, they're very capable technicians, but they don't understand the music itself because it's not part of their culture. And I think that is so small-minded because music is a language in itself. And
she also gave advice on how to address such stereotypes.
The education here is a lot about reaching perfection. But that is just one aspect, and I think music serves a way greater purpose than that, than being perfect. I think it's about really connecting with other people, building bridges, and it has to speak to people like the audience that you play for.
In addition to her musical pursuits, Lee is currently writing a book for aspiring cellists and music enthusiasts. But her ambitions extend beyond the realm of music.
But my ultimate goal is really to have a foundation that focuses on exploring different ways of expression and combining collaboration between different art forms, and giving more people opportunities to study art.
Lee will make her debut with the Boston Symphony Orchestra at the Tanglewood Festival in Massachusetts next month, beginning an exciting new chapter of her life. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Another monsoonal rain front will enter the country tomorrow, bringing nationwide showers. Along with the rain, temperatures will drop a couple degrees. For Seoul and Daegu, highs will be about 3 degrees lower for tomorrow. This round of monsoon rain will be concentrated across central parts of the country. As for the amount of rainfall, the Seoul metropolitan area will see heavy downpours of up to 250 millimeters. Gangwon-do province and the surrounding regions will see up to 200. The rest of inland regions, including Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces, will see 150 millimeters. Locally, heavy downpours of 30 to 60 millimeters per hour may batter central regions. There is a possibility that water levels across rivers and valleys will rise sharply. Those across low-lying areas should stay extra alert. Morning temperatures in Seoul, Daejeon, and Busan will be starting off at 24 degrees Celsius. As for the daily highs, Seoul will get up to 27, Daejeon 28, Busan will be reaching 27 degrees. For the remainder of the week, monsoonal showers will continue across the nation. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session is coming up.